dear hearts, welcome to this year's edition of the Global Wisdom Gathering, Dreaming the New Earth, on the theme, As of the Stars, So of the Earth. And here we're in conversation with keepers and guardians of ancient truths and teachings about where we come from and where we're heading as a collective. Visionaries, medicine people, practitioners from a variety of backgrounds, all offering us this time for sacred learning. And in this edition of Dreaming the New Earth, we zoom in on what our place is in the true cosmic origins and story of humanity, as well as our deep connection to the earth and what guidance and insight we can find in our ancient history for this journey of awakening here on Gaia. I'm Clara, your host and creator of this event. And in this session, I'm excited to be speaking with Megan Kelly. And I'm so pleased to have you, Megan, because we met years back on a training, and I just love the work that you're doing, innovating in constellation work as well. And I'm glad you could join us here. It's great to see you again.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Clara. Very happy to be here and be part of this group for sacred learning. I'm already touched.
Absolutely. Thank you. So for those who don't know Megan Kelly is a teacher and integrative therapist who was born and raised in Colorado, but as a dual citizen of Ireland, in her adult life, she followed the path of her ancestors back to Europe. Today, she is based in Brussels, Belgium, and serves the international community and an even more expansive community online. She believes in lifelong learning, continual growth, and the quest to know and embody our true natures. Her approach to working with clients is an integral one that includes the whole person, spirit, body, and mind. As an integrative therapist, Megan combines constellation work with other tools, including systemic ritual, somatic psychotherapy, and trauma recovery and counseling astrology. Megan is passionate about sharing constellations with others for healing, understanding, and accessing the greater mystery of life and our family stories. She's a teacher of constellation work and the creator of AstroConstellation, a blend of constellations and astrology. She works with individuals, couples, and groups, and holds constellation circles a few times a month, both online and in Brussels. Amazing. And I'm just so excited that you're bringing this piece to the conversation because of my love for constellation work and how powerful it is in bringing things into the body and working from that place. So the topic that you're going to be sharing about is healing and community, and this is so pertinent for, of course, for constellation work. And I believe you know, as do I, see the shamanic root of this kind of work. But before we go into all of that, I'd love to hear a little bit about your personal journey, Megan, and what a little bit more about your background. We've heard your bio, but in your words and from your experience, how did you come to this path and how did you come to be an integrative therapist?
Oh, it's simply been following the signs, I suppose, and following my interests. I couldn't have imagined that it would turn out as it is, and I just feel so blessed. But what happened to me was I'm born and raised in Colorado in the US, and I always have had this longing to live abroad and to improve my Spanish. It was really a matter of language. And I lived in Argentina for 5 years and discovered so many things there, including the shamanic path and constellation work. And bringing in the body, for example, it was after my first constellation where they reminded me, you didn't really respond in your body so much. So that was a whole journey of you can feel more in your body, and it opened the world of the bioenergetics in particular, and also the somatic experience working with the body and the nervous system. So it was constellations that led me to that. And from a young age, I've had the influence of astrology and finding patterns and just the interest in it. And I followed an interest, and now I see how useful it is with clients. So voila, that's where we are today. And other things along the way. I'm a seeker. I knew from a young age I would be a student of life. I didn't know it would be about all of this, but I really don't think there's anything better.
Mhm.
Knowing about ourselves, contributing to the world, contributing to make the world a better place.
Mm. Absolutely, and this is something that's been weaving through the conversations in this, in this series of interviews. The importance of doing that healing work at this time, and what that means on our spiritual path, and healing our
Yeah.
ancestral lines. And your what is your view? Well, you work with trauma. What is your background and your view on working with trauma, and how does spirituality fit into that?
Mm. Wow. Well, I remember a time, and I think so many will agree, when we thought trauma was if you went to war or you had a car accident or got some tragic news. And we now know, and just in the last 20 years, truly with the Stephen Porges and polyvagal theory, that trauma is in our nervous system and it leaves imprints, and that there's really no one who's free of experiencing some kind of trauma in life. And and that presents challenges, of course, that presents limitations. But when we can heal that, and we know now that we can by working in the body, we are body-mind connection. We're not just the mind. And working that way, we can heal trauma. We can move past it. And I see time and time again in constellations how the trauma ends up being the gift. And that has absolutely been my story, and so many of these other speakers at this conference, and you too, Clara. I'm sure that we all say the same thing. When we're able to get on the other side of that, we can see the gift as the space that it gives us to be able to be with others, to be able to even access other realms in a grounded and safe way. So there are so many crossovers between trauma work and spirituality. It's really a gateway, I would say. The trauma is a gateway to be able to reach the other side. But that comes with the challenges, the fear, the repetitions, being triggered, all of that. But if you're dedicated to this path of consciousness, you start to embrace those and take it day by day as signs of where to go. The triggers are signs of where to go, of what isn't healed. And so in that sense, the trauma is our guide as well on how to reach these higher places, which is truly our true sense of self, our true essence.
Mhm.
Does that answer fully?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And you've said that trauma theory crosses over with shamanic healing or indigenous ways. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? How are they connected?
Absolutely. It's been such a discovery. Well, for example, in the polyvagal theory, we're all hoping to reach social engagement, or the ventral vagal, the place of connection, the place of mindfulness, the place of grounded, the place where we're willing or able to be with others, because at the end of the day, we're mammals and we do need each other. And so there's the community piece, there's the connection piece, and this is key in for healing trauma, connection. And this is just a way of life for the indigenous ways. It's a way of life being in community. When someone had a challenge, the community would come to support. A new child had many eyes looking over him. And it was this support of community that brought healing and the understanding that that's what we need as people. So that's one of the major crossovers. The bigger view of inclusion of ancestors and inclusion of the system, the fact that you're not just Clara, I'm not just Megan, we are all those that came before us. We're really the summary of all those experiences that we carry inside of us, not just in our genes, but in the ancestral memory that we carry inside. And so that was a basic view for in the shamanic view, in the indigenous ways. But with trauma healing now, the expansion of this intergenerational trauma, this awareness that something I'm living could be connected to something someone else lived long ago. So those are some of the first examples that come to mind. I think also about this object that we use a lot in trauma healing. Peter Levine in Somatic Experience uses this a lot. And so we talk about this in terms of the space that we have inside of us, the space we have in our nervous system, which allows us to pause and be able to choose differently, to not just react, those knee-jerk reactions. And so as we heal, regulate, and learn how to hold more emotion, that's truly what healing is about. It's about feeling. It's about being able to hold emotions instead of turn from them. As we do that, we gain more space inside. But I've used this same object to talk about the ancestral field. That the more we sort out and connect and also separate to go to our own life, the ancestors become a tremendous source of strength and a life force that supports us from behind to go to our own life. So you could look at this as life force in the body or life force with the ancestors.
Beautiful. So
thank you. It's been beautiful to discover and to continue to discover. It's like we are returning to those old ways that they knew so much.
it just makes me think of the complexity that we are, we just, as you were saying, we carry so much from our ancestors, all of their experiences. And as we're discovering these days, everything just keeps getting older, and, they're discovering things that are much older than we thought or that we were led to believe. And what does that mean, for what we carry? As you said, we're the summary of all of our ancestral experience. And I love that you brought in that tool that you use in somatic healing, and it also makes me think of the importance of slowing down to be able to have that pause, and to train ourselves to have that pause in between whatever trigger there is and that response or reaction. So that's super valuable. And
right. Absolutely. If we could slow down, we would heal ourselves.
Yeah. And everything just feels like it's accelerating more and more at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, part of our challenge. Many challenges.
Yeah. So we looked at, the ancient ways and the indigenous ways. And what can that mean for the future of therapy? Because we're also looking at where are we going from here? Do we integrate that? Do we use that, or do we go back to that completely? Do we bring in new things? What's your perspective on that?
Right. Thank you for this question. I find myself, I'm not a trained psychologist, although young, I felt led to becoming a therapist, and it didn't happen that way, but it came back around in a different way. And so I didn't go this traditional route, the academic route, and I'm alternative in a sense. So I find myself, even though I'm a trained psychotherapist, I'm in this paradigm shift, like we all are, really. And I think there are several things on the horizon. First of all, the inclusion of indigenous wisdom is that we are not just a mind, a mental body. We're not just a physical body. We are also the emotional body, and we are also a spiritual body. And so much of that spiritual sense or value has been dismissed in therapy and not included at all. Also, this expansion of view, of this systemic view, that we are not just you and me, we are, again, those who came before us, and that what happened there can greatly impact our life. And it has so much to do with authenticity when we can look bigger and look beyond just the repetitions of the mind. And so the inclusion of these different bodies, when those are in harmony, when those are in balance, that's when we are in balance. And this is part of the teaching of the medicine wheel, that we are all of these bodies. We are the mental body, we are the physical body, we are the emotional, and we are the spiritual. And so this consideration is definitely part of our future. And collective healing is definitely a part of our future. And this is what the indigenous already knew. This was their way of life and continues to be. So this is why I'm excited about constellations, for example, that it's not just for those who bring a question, it's for everyone. And I could never orchestrate what happens in the constellation. We are in connection with a bigger source of life, you know, the field that we work with, the quantum field. So we're really working on this level. And then I think about the message of astrology, of course, that we're entering this new time, the age of Aquarius, how whenever you believe that that officially happens, it's happening. And Aquarius is about the collective. It is about groups. And in another sense, this is just much more efficient. We're going from separation from individual therapy focus, which will still be there and carries a lot of value. Not to say it'll be washed away, no. But the consideration of why couldn't we heal in community? Why can't we be quite efficient and effective and work together and heal in new ways? So I actually call my work the integrative path with the different blends of the somatic therapy, the constellations, or counseling astrology, or the constellation path, which is a path in itself. That you participate in constellations, that you come to the circles, and that you see how the field moves and teaches you. And I see that with clients where they pick up the signs of what shows up in the exercises or the roles that they're chosen for, and they're in tune with life. And that's what it's all about. That's what life is about, getting in touch with this bigger essence around us, guiding us toward our true nature. So collective healing is absolutely a big part of our future and our present. Let's say that.
Yes, and I just realized maybe we can backtrack for a moment for those who might be viewing that have never heard of constellations work or might have heard of it but don't know what it is. What is a constellation? A
Right.
a systemic constellation. It's always an interesting one to try and describe. I'd love to hear yours.
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. All right. Well, I often describe it like this. Because I want to speak to those who are skeptical or more in a scientific mind. It's for you too. It's for all of us. There are endless ways we could describe this, in fact, but I like to start with, if we think about the birds in the sky, the flock of birds, if we think about the school of fish in the sea, they stay together in these groups. And how do they not hit each other? How are they in such perfect synchronization? They are connected in a morphogenetic field. We know now with Rupert Sheldrake's work. And humans are also connected in this field to our families. And so this explains why we may think of someone and they call us, or we may just know something's going on. We have a premonition about someone, we have a dream. This explains the repetition of birthdays, the repetition of names, the repetition of many things. So that's a view of this field that keeps us connected in the family. And within a field, it's a system, and it carries the laws of systems that everyone born into the system belongs, that there is a hierarchy or a certain structure, hierarchy in the sense that parents come before, they were born before the kids. And then the balance, the value of balance in relationships. this makes a system work properly or advance, let's call it that. But many things happen in a family system and in our world that interrupt the system, that interrupt the flow of love. And so what we do in a constellation is individually or in a group, quite effective in groups, and that's really the power of it. It's like an energy field is formed of the participants, and we give form to the story. And the unconscious story is presented before your eyes. And it can either confirm what you already believe, or it can give you a new perspective. And maybe both. And it really works on the level of the soul. Although this can help a lot with the mind and help with consciousness and awareness, it did that a lot for me in the beginning. It's very much about the soul, the individual soul, and the family soul. And how can we bring more flow in that system? But why? Why do we do that? So that we can be authentic, in fact. We all have a need to belong. It's a basic need. And so we do certain things to belong that essentially go against our own nature. And so this gives us, or let's say limits our nature. It may be limiting. And so constellations is an opportunity and a technique to show you where are you getting caught up. That's not allowing you to take your own life to go toward your own authenticity. What's the influence of the system, in other words? So that was a long answer, Clara.
That's a great one, though.
It's basically going into the system. We all know who do this work, how difficult it is to explain it. It's highly experiential. So anyone watching, get in touch, come to a circle, and you'll see what it is because it's experiential. It has to really be seen and felt, but it's a very natural process and it's healing for everyone there. You have amazing opportunities when you're representing something, and it brings insights and healing for your own story while you're working in service for someone else's family system. And that's the spirit of healing in community. It's just brilliant.
Yes,
Yeah.
and something I love about constellations is, the training that we've been through is experiential because it can't, there's obviously some theory, but we have to go through the healing ourselves to be able to then facilitate that. It's all about us doing our work experientially in that training. So, as you were saying, there's you can always explain it in different ways, although this is a great explanation. Thank you for that. But experiencing it is
Sure.
a completely different level of understanding. So, yes.
That's right. And it just, the more you do it, the more value you get, the more experiences and insights. It expands. It's really a philosophy of life. I mean, Bert Hellinger was a philosopher as well as a psychotherapist, as well as a teacher. But his background and his awareness came so much from the Zulu there in South Africa, where you are. And there we go, right back to the indigenous ways. I like to say that he was a missionary with the purpose of what a missionary is there to do, right? Spread the word of God. But I look at it that they converted him more than he converted them as he left the priesthood after all of this, taking the beauty and the wisdom from that. And he had done it for many years. But he was so inspired by the way of life and the perspective, the bigger perspective, the systemic view, and this respect for parents and ancestors and all that they had lived and given to us.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that in. Yes, and for those who are not familiar with the name, Bert Hellinger was the founder of, Constellations as we understand it today. And I love how he even spoke of those people who we're called to this work, being the black sheep of the family, coming to disrupt whatever was there, to heal whatever was needed to heal. And Megan, how do you relate to the title of this conference, Dreaming the New Earth, as of the stars? So how does it connect to your
I just Yes, what a beautiful title. And I was just so inspired seeing that title because, like, I have a medicine wheel here, which is something I work with a lot. And it's really a ground plan. It's about the earth, it's about where we live. It carries such wisdom. Um, and there can be such an excitement as well as a temptation to just want to go to up and to want to be in those higher realms that several can overlook or overlook, I'm going to say, the importance of the body and the reality that we're in. Whether you believe we came from the stars, I'm sure many people watching this believe that, but we did go through this process of coming into form and the challenge that that was for us and the challenge that that is in our life. But that all this knowledge now that we can heal more in the body and we can become more, we can heal trauma, healing trauma and gaining space in our nervous system is how we go to a higher vibration. It's how we're able to be on the earth as well as connected to the sky in a safe and healthy way. And I was touched because I work with this medicine wheel, I work with the body. It's very much helping clients be in the present with all the challenges that that can bring. But let's also look at the stars and look at the sky as guidance, as a mirror of us. And that's the value of astrology that I work with and that I use in therapy. Um, at first I wasn't sure if that was a positive thing, as many have had bad experiences with astrology. But astrology, like anything, when we put so much trust in something outside of ourselves, it can let us down. And so the real belief that I have with astrology is that it is a mirror, that the language of the stars and the heavens is a mirror of what we carry inside of us. And so if we can use that for self-learning, for guidance, um, then we're connected to the ground and the skies. And that brings us back to the title of your summit. So there were many reasons I was inspired by that name and just seeing that's where we're going. Again, Aquarius is about space. It's about innovation. It's otherworldly. So this is going to come into our reality more and more. I saw on Google the other day, um, it was like a simulation of the moon and the phase of the moon we were in on the Google homepage. So we're going to see more of that.
Yeah, it's a time of technology, and how we use that is going to be important as well going forward,
Yeah, of course. Where there's a light and excitement, there's a shadow. And that's another thing, right? To be aware of the shadow as well as the light. Like we include both. And I saw that in the title of the summit as well. It's not just the heavens, it's not just the light. That's a great thing. But the complement, we to think in compliments, to think bigger.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think we have, these amazing healing tools and some other modalities that are being shared about on this conference. We have all these incredible tools available to us to do that healing work and not bypass things. I've mentioned it in other conversations that there can be this tendency
Yeah.
to want to just go out into the spacey realms and there's so much that needs to be brought down to earth and do that work down here and even underground, because it connects to that
Underground. Yeah.
as you brought up, it connects to that authenticity, which is so important right now. And yeah.
I think of, let me share, I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
Okay.
I think about some of the wisdom of the medicine wheel with this conversation because the north is the place of spirit, but it's not in isolation. It is an access. So it's connected to the south, which is the present, the spiritual body, the physical body, the timeless, the forever, the present, and the limitations of that. But they go together. And so if we, I have an experience myself of spiritual bypass. I'm from the United States and grew up quite Christian. And when you have a challenge, it's really to rush out to the church, find your support there, find your support in God. And there's a lot of beautiful things from that and a lot of beautiful things I gained. But it was a bypass for something so difficult that I was living. And that faith, I learned deep faith because of it. But later on, it presented challenges in life that there's also a ground and a reality that we face. And I firmly believe that our greatest power is being fully in the present. Because from there we can access other things. It's a launching pad. It's not a limitation.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
And there's so much suffering when we're not in it, honestly.
Yeah. So astrology, this is one of your modalities as well. What is the value of using astrology in therapy with your clients? And then we'll move on to constellations are, because I'm very curious to hear more about that.
Okay. Well, astrology is such a big world. I know you have several astrologers on the panel of this conversation, and I'm eager to watch their interviews as there's so much wisdom, so many perspectives, and so many ways when it comes to astrology. I work personally with the psychological astrology. You could say I'm a modern psychological astrologer. So I really value the chart and the insights of what it can reflect back to me in my own self-awareness. This is one of the major uses of it. So I don't work with prediction and these kind of things. And so in this sense, it is a blueprint. It's a map of our psyche. And it's full of layers of consciousness. It's the same chart from birth to when you pass on. So how could it be? We're not the same, but it's layered in experiences. And we start to get to know ourselves. And it speaks in a language that nothing else did for me. So it just clicked and filled in the blanks of what I needed to know. And it continues to do that. And so I use the chart principally in therapy for self-learning, self-reflection. The moon sign in particular. I'm a Cancer myself, so I'm highly linked to the moon and all of this, but I find it the most useful in therapy. It's our emotional body, it's our inner child, it's our inner world, it's our how we mother ourselves, how we were mothered. There's so much there that you're talking about in therapy. And it leads to self-understanding and self-acceptance. And then astrology is a language of cycles. And so many people come during their Saturn return at 29 or midlife transits, which hits everybody. Everybody goes through these moments of life, or several clients have come in the Chiron return between 50 and 52. And just explaining that to them gives some calmness and some understanding to what they're living. And so when you feel like your life's upside down or not making any sense, go to an astrologer, get some guidance, and that's how the stars can reflect back to us and give us more acceptance, an idea about timing to know this isn't forever. This is a season. And what can I gain from it? What can I actually make of this experience? It's a language of consciousness. So I am quite passionate about it. And I was hesitant at first to offer this with therapy, but 8 out of 10 people want to know. And it's just so useful.
Amazing. It just, yeah, it does give you that sense of, okay, there is this greater plan and this divine, these divine influences, cosmic influences going on as well that I can imagine, well, I know from experience also, it does give some peace of mind as, to some degree, you know.
Peace of mind.
Yeah.
Or some acceptance, some understanding that this is not forever.
Yeah.
And it can give some language to what you can expect that's coming. And that can be helpful, absolutely. I yeah, it's predominantly these life cycles that astrology is such a potent tool about, that I really love it and see it in therapy work over and over again. To me,
Mm.
there's no question of astrology is real. Of course it is. And I'm sure everyone watching this will pretty much be on board with that. But it's really a big part of our future as well. Astrology is a very Aquarian thing. It's connected, it's the skies, right? So it's just like the many times in history where it was on the rise. I feel it's really on the rise again. Something so potent and powerful wouldn't just keep coming back if it didn't offer so much.
Yeah. And
So
you,
there's ancient wisdom.
mhm, absolutely. You can, do you want to say anything else about that? I'm sorry to interrupt you there. There's a little bit of a lag in the,
Oh, no, no, go ahead. Go
yeah.
ahead. I think there's a little lag in the connection, but no, no, go ahead, Clara.
No, I was going to ask you next about your astro constellation, and you've combined astrology with constellation work, and I'm very curious to hear about why, how, and what does it look like when you're in a constellation doing astro constellation?
Okay, absolutely. Well, why is an interesting question. For consciousness. It's for consciousness and for healing, for self-awareness. That basically astrology is a system, just like our family system or an organization or our own body. Anything that's a system can be constellated. And constellated just means working in the field, bringing in parts of the system and seeing how they interact. And so I started getting interested in this, knowing that astrology was a system. And what would it be like to constellate these different parts of us? It's like doing parts work in constellations. You're what are these different parts of me? How do they interact? Which one takes center stage? Which ones don't look at each other? The chart shows that, but it's highly intellectual and it's a lot of interpretation with the chart. And that's the beauty and the art of astrology. So don't take away any of that. We in fact add to it. We add to what the chart gives by how do these planets interact? Or better said, I don't always bring in the planets from the start. It's usually a typical constellation, and then you start to see parts of the chart showing up. The other day, for example, in a constellation, one of the reps, we brought her in as something kind of vague. The field was revealing. And little by little, she felt like a young girl, the inner child. Okay. So I thought, I'm going to keep in mind that she's representing the moon. And then later on, she said she was around 10 years old, which the moon was 10 degrees in this girl's chart, by the way. And then later on, the rep said, my age has changed. I'm now an elder. Well, her moon was conjunct Saturn. So amazing that the energy of her moon was showing up like that. And then one of the other reps showed to be Venus. And in her chart, there's an aspect between the sun conjunct Saturn with Venus. So it showed not just a reflection of her personal story in her chart in this aspect, but the bigger systemic story. And why wouldn't it? We can read the chart for the family system. Yeah, we can. That's a whole viewpoint of astrology. We look at the chart for what happened in the system, what happened to you as individuals. We could look at the chart for health, for those of you who do medical astrology, for the world, the mundane astrology. It's a language of fractals. It's showing the fractals that impact our life today. And that is what constellation work does. It's a language of fractals. What happened to the ancestors that is impacting my life today? And that creates a vibration and a ripple effect. And when we work in a constellation, we create a new ripple effect going forward, a new frequency. And so it's very powerful, especially for those who understand astrology a bit and can understand the chart, or several are beginners. Their interest is now peaked. So they may not be able to understand what Moon conjunct Saturn means, but they could see the story. And if we learn in little bits, we can learn. And that's the best way to learn astrology, in little bits, so you can remember the massive amount of information available. So you asked why, how, and what does it look like? It's like any other constellation, Clara, but the elements reveal themselves as parts of the chart. And you can also come from the astrology perspective and say, I would really like to tease out this aspect pattern, for example. I would really like, it's a part of my chart I'm struggling with. I can't really grasp it. Let's see what may show up. There are many things hidden in that aspect. It's not just the absolute truth, what shows up in the constellation, but it's going to be relevant to their life today. Anything that shows up in the field is relevant for our life now. And it always goes back to, why are we doing this? What's the guiding question? And we need that when we do a constellation to go somewhere. Otherwise, it's never ending.
Wow, fascinating. And so do their birth chart first, the client initially, or is that not necessary?
Well, it's not necessary. You can still constellate and the field will reveal things, but I find much more meaning if I have their chart there. So I do look at their chart, yes, and I use the chart as guidance. The other day, another woman, we were constellating something about work, but it was her 12th house was loaded with planets and asteroids and all of that. And so it's a sign that she has a strong link with far off ancestry, that this work, constellation work, would really support her. It supports all of us, but especially if you have certain indicators in your chart related to ancestry. So in that sense, the chart supports. The chart absolutely supports, yeah.
Mhm. Wow, beautiful.
And for those of us who like it, we keep learning more and more about the charts and how the symbols show up. So I've had very seasoned astrologers come who could get something new about a sign or a planet.
Wow.
So it's an exciting exploration. We have fun in these circles. It's pretty fun as well.
Awesome. So, Megan, you have a beautiful gift for our audience, which is connected to your work with the medicine wheel. And I wanted to give you also a little bit of space to speak about that work that you do with the Wheel of the Four Directions. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on
Hmm.
how you work with it, and then share what the free gift is?
Yes, absolutely. Hmm. Well, I want to bring up the founder and the creator of Systemic Ritual. It's a blend of shamanism, shamanic practice with constellation. It's Dan Van Kampenhout, a dear teacher. And we work with the wheel of the four directions. He doesn't call it a medicine wheel, as it's not for any specific tradition or people. And it's the wisdom of the wheel and the directions and what they show. There are countless applications of this, but in your free gift, you have a little bit about what each direction stands for And you have two rituals to use. One is about resources, where you simply can, there's some instructions there for you, but you can actually take an inventory, I like to say, of your own resources to see which areas of life are overpopulated, underpopulated, or how balanced am I? Coming back to that question we talked about in the beginning about the different bodies and the different parts of us. It's about balance. It's about valuing all parts of life. And then the second ritual is about the heart. Where are we going? What do we not need anymore? And there you go. It's a gift for you to experience that. And I teach about this. I have events about it. So get in touch if that's interesting for you.
Beautiful.
And enjoy the gift and all the other gifts that the presenters will share.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for that beautiful gift. And as we come to the end of our time together, Megan, what is your personal wish, your personal prayer or vision for the new earth?
Wow, what a question. I'm going to dream about unity. And I know that's not going to happen right away. But as we grow in our consciousness, as we can see ourselves more, we see that we are human. We see beyond the, see, I get emotional.
Hmm.
If we can see past what divides us, if we can connect to our humanity, that's my dream. As we do that, we will live in harmony. We'll take better care of where we live. And we'll see that we are a reflection of the earth. We are all like little earths walking around. The earth is for everyone. That's what I hope for.
May it be so. Thank you, Megan.
Maybe so.
So much. Thank you so much for sharing all this beautiful wisdom with us. And absolutely, may it be so. Thank you for bringing your voice and your prayer to this gathering, and to all of those who have joined us here in this conversation, listening. Thank you. We appreciate you, and we'll see you at the next session. Much love.